Okay, we'll give it like another minute and get it started. Okay, thanks, Giovanna. Okay, but as I said, if there are any other questions or anything, just type them into the chat form and we'll answer them from there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start to share screen and show you the various things. Okay, I pick screen 2. Okay, so basically this, okay, if everyone can see this, this looks like the form you originally filled out because I copied that as a follow-up. And then I talked a little bit about the presentation. I explained that Education USA is a network of over 400 advising centers in 170 countries or more than 170 countries. And that we here at IAC are host institution for Education USA for Serbia. And then I just kind of listed the presentations, which you all know about, and the start time. But then I started to kick in extra questions, and you can see I made a little Serbian translator there. Okay, so we went ahead and did last name, first name again, so I could match you. Then the email address that you would like us to invite you to Slack through. Okay, and then also we asked you for some long answers like why graduate school and why now. Okay. Okay, it just kind of cuts off, unfortunately, but there it is. Okay, which area of interest do you plan to pursue? And then it's okay to explain. Maybe you're not certain, maybe you want to change fields. And then whether you're looking for a short-term program or maybe you want to go to the US over the summer or for 6 weeks or some kind of certificate or master's, PhD, or postdoc. And also other destinations or combinations that might be of interest to you. Now we've seen study programs where people spend 1 year in one country and 1 year in another. Okay, I knew someone who was highly interested in an MBA, but he wanted a very elite MBA. He ended up deciding that he didn't really need an MBA, and I tend to agree because he's a fabulous salesman who just moves up wherever he goes. But he was at a time in his life where he was wondering, and he came back to us and discussed it with us. But the point was that he found a program where you started your MBA in China and you finished at Columbia and you basically got an MBA diploma that had both places on it, which put you at a top school via another route. And so these days there are more joint degree programs than ever. And so we're quite interested in what interests you. And since we have we have a small but dedicated team at IAC that when we know what you are looking for and we come across so much information and exchange it that often we can find a fit. Okay, and we will say something such as, Daniel is interested in this, we should send this to him, this is a good fit. And so basically that's what we try to do. So tonight we'll go ahead and have a look at Education USA and financial aid, but we'll also we'll talk about some other opportunities that are special to you, about some search engines, and we'll just talk about some of the facts. Okay, the first thing that you must know about financial aid is that the bulk of support comes directly from the department where you apply. Okay, not from companies, not from door to door, knock, 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 hi there, Delta. I'm but a poor, humble, brilliant sir. Would you give me money? Okay, that doesn't work very well. The percentages on this, which I will try to publish because this information just recently came out, and probably is not even in bound form yet, but it will arrive at my office eventually, that will show what percent is funding this way, but it is like a runaway figure to see that most of the funding comes from departments. Most of the funding comes through either a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship. Much of the funding also goes for PhD students because their commitment is deeper and more long-term. Never forget that many programs allow you to go from bachelor's directly into PhD. And the way that typically works is that after 2 years, you receive a master's. Okay, now truly to talk about this, some people in the past have felt that there was something of a workaround to apply for a PhD program, get the master's, and jump ship. Clever, but of course, if you want to outflank academia, you must get up very early in the morning. So many programs have added the caveat that if you leave without completing your PhD, that your master's degree will turn automatically, like Cinderella not getting home at night, into what is known as a terminal degree. And that means you cannot climb further into a PhD. It means that you have hit a dead end. You will leave with a master's degree tucked under your arm, but that's it for you academically, unless you want to go back and try again from bachelor's to go up, work your way up to doctor. Just so you know that train, the loophole has been closed. Okay, but there also are master's programs that are generous. So let's go ahead and have a look and see what all is going on in the world of higher education. Okay, and financing. So here is our Education USA site, and as you can see, they're very good on this information and this guidance. And at this time, I do not want to miss telling you that the U.S. Embassy here in Belgrade on Thursday at, I believe, 12 noon on Facebook is going to actually give a presentation on visas. They're also going to be talking about the alphabet soup of DHS, which is made up of I's, uses, and all of these different things, what it means to be SEVIS certified, and these kind of things. And you can also see this information here. Oh, 3 p.m. Whoops. Okay. That's why I'll send you the information and not really just like verbally tell you things. Okay. So also over here, you can see our 5 steps to study in the financing of your U.S. study. And you can see find an advising center, which would be us. And then we select graduate over here. And you see that deadlines and scholarships. Okay, sometimes you're automatically considered. Other times you need to apply. So researching your opportunities is a little bit bigger than what you might have expected. And for each school you select, you will fill out a separate application for the school itself that heads kind of toward the department, and we'll be going over this in coming weeks. And at the same time, you may need to submit a financial aid application, or you may receive automatic consideration. Okay, research assistantships are typically you doing research. Teaching assistantships are typically teaching usually a bunch of undergraduate students. In doing this, one thing that you want to be thinking about is, have you ever taught anyone anything? Okay, maybe you haven't officially taught anything, but maybe you've helped someone with their homework. Maybe you enjoy these roles. You want to begin to think about how you're going to present yourself. This is really multitasking. Well, I would say at its worst, but also at its most enjoyable, because you think of all the possibilities. You get a chance after all this hard work that took you into faculty, took many of you into budget, competitions, good grades, VUCOV, done everything right, and often the transition from undergraduate to graduate school represents that moment when you get to pause and turn around and look back and survey all that you have accomplished. And you want to present those accomplishments in the best light possible. And so there's getting in, and there's getting in with money. Okay, and if you need to get in with money, do you need all the money, or do you need part of the money, or maybe you don't need any money? Okay, but these are the things you want to look at. Okay, and you can see down here are all these general funding resources. I was not impressed with guaranteed scholarships because it touches a lot on undergraduates as well as graduates, so it's kind of mixed up. The student loan program, this is something where we do offer financial counseling. Taking student loans, it can be very complicated, and as anyone who has been watching anything happen in the United States of America, unless you're living under a rock, you know that this is a big deal for Americans who graduate from college with a lot of debt. Debt does crush dreams unless you're going into a field that is big money. But if you're out to change the world or make a big difference, you know, it's really important that you control your debt, because that sets the path you're going to go on, and you want to decide. But I know plenty of people who have gone to a Master's of Law, aka LLM, an MBA, or an area like that that could be pretty much in such times counted on as well paid, well recruited, perhaps with a bonus. Those type of things will pay off. But if you're at a school that is talking to you about a loan, you need to talk to them about outcome. And you need to talk to them as you get in contact and start speaking about applying. You want to ask them questions about international students, people from the region who graduated last year. Where are they now? Is there, in other words, you want to know, if I'm going to take a loan, is there going to be a job for me at the end of this? If it's a PhD, you probably shouldn't be taking a loan at all. Okay, but these kind of things vary, but these are the rules of thumb. Okay, and then you've got the international ed, financial aid, these things, but I'm going to look at an IIE online. We announce financial aid opportunities every week. Okay, but over here, as you can see, that we can put in, say, graduate, master's in education, USA, or doctorate or postdoctorate. You can look by U.S. state. I would think that would come later when you're refining search. Is first shotgun approach, fire at everything in sight, and then examine it later to see if it's a good fit for you. Okay, here we have Carnegie Mellon, which they look like they're mostly interested in Thailand. Okay, then you see the International Student Merit Scholarship. It's at University of Central Arkansas, and that's for application March 31st. Okay, one thing I would tell you is somebody might say, Arkansas, why? Why would anyone do that? Well, I don't know. If you're interested in retail, there's a little outfit that operates out of Arkansas known as Walmart. Okay, so when you look as a graduate student, you also want to look at who's connected with who. Okay, but we will get into that more as we go through this and more as we begin to work together in our Slack side. Okay, now here's another interesting area, and this is the Florida Eastern Europe Linkage Institute. They tell you that they are accepting applications for fall 2020 and spring 2021, but only through April 30th. But I know for a fact from the call I had with them that they are renewing this again. And this has been around for a long time. And you wonder, why does this matter to me? Okay, and I will try to get the computer to let me show you. Okay, this Linkage Institute was started in 1987, and it's to develop stronger ties with other countries. And what it has it has an out-of-state tuition exemption program. And this program includes Serbia, okay, and some other places. Okay, and what this means is that you can apply and pay in-state tuition at Florida Public University. There is a program in Eastern Michigan that also offers in-state tuition. And in-state tuition is tuition that is subsidized by taxpayers of that state. And this is an attempt to do outreach. So probably you're not going to see something like this in Manhattan or Boston, but you will see it at public universities scattered through the U.S. And part of our Education USA mission is each year to reach out and to hunt for those schools and ask them to let us know that they're involved in this, because it can be a huge bargain. Also, if the department is offering you a research assistantship or a tuition assistantship to finance, it means that they're going to waive the cost of your tuition in the department, and you'll probably be getting a monthly stipend, and you're actually cheaper for the department because you're on out-of-state tuition. So that makes you a more attractive candidate, if that's making sense to you all. As I keep saying, there's a lot of information here, okay? And you would need to submit a renewal application each year. For this, I would not panic, okay, because it's most likely, but what I would say is if you're on this program, you probably don't want to pick a fight with the department head, okay? Probably don't want to be over the faculty parking lot flipping people off over parking places, okay? This is what you want to watch. And then here is another opportunity. These are just a few. This one is specifically for females, And a lot of Serbian females, we have been recommending this for years, and it's been working for years. Okay? And as you can say, see, this deadline is behind, but it's behind because it's for people who are currently accepted. It will tell you here that they're looking for the equivalent of a U.S. bachelor's degree, which would be your degree here. Okay. And they will tell you that you need to have earned, okay, that you must have already applied to your proposed institution of study. Okay, at that time. So this is something that goes on afterwards. One reason that I've asked you to fill out this other form that we'll be sending out to you that indicates your field of study, it gives you a chance to write to us and to our team and talk about your goals, is so that we can keep our eyes peeled and keep trying to help fit you into areas that are of interest to you and where there's funding available. Funding is typically easier to get in some fields than it is in others, and that's another reason why it matters. Okay, another thing to think about is if you are looking at, if you have different types of citizenship, you may qualify for different types of funding. And that, you know, we have a lot of people in this country who hold more than one citizenship because we're citizens of the world. Okay, does anyone at this point have any questions about financial aid? I wanted to leave more open for questions because this is an area that I think this is one of the most high stress areas for students. So what would you all like to know about financial aid and the way it would work for someone at this point in your life? Okay, go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay. Mhm. Okay, I will be sending these things out to you most likely after this once they're in Serbian. Okay, about joining the Slack channel. Okay, now in addition to that, about the question, how hard or easy is it to find financial aid for humanities and liberal arts PhDs? Okay, one thing I would say is that in some areas, these have actually been cut by some departments, but there are other departments that are very firmly supporting these. And so if you write a powerful and strong application and you look at schools that are highly engaged in funding and you find good research interests, you can get funded. It's going to, the biggest answer to every single question, you know, always starts with, it depends. How good are your grades? Are you published? How do you assess yourself? And so on. These are the kind of things that they're looking at. Or have you been engaged and done some voluntary work in that area? You know, how passionate are you about that area? These are the type of things that people are going to be looking at. Okay, some ways when you want to know how to to look at yourself or to see how competitive are you, I can let me open this and we can kind of go through this step by step. Okay, first thing that I want to say, I'm going to share this particular screen with you, but I do want to let you know that this is not a this is not new, and that a lot of things have changed. Okay, but here is a good rule of thumb of how to look and see how competitive are you. Okay, and one thing is to give yourself 1 point for each 0.1 increment above 9.0 on your GPA. Now, the first thing, having lived here for like Godina, I know that not every faculty is the same. And some places that only the professor knows for 9 or above. So with this, you also have to use common sense. If you're headed to graduate school, you should be somewhat aware of what's happening in the department. For example, in my senior year at university, I knew who were the idiots and who were the smart people. Okay, and you should kind of be in that same type of herd to go to graduate school. Okay, and so you would give yourself a point for each 10. But listen, you can adapt it if you will have a realistic vision of what's happening. For example, on some of those faculties, I think the mining faculty is one of the toughest, okay, in terms of keeping you low. I think you all probably know much better than I do which faculties are the toughest to squeeze 9s and 10s out of. Okay, a grade of 7 or lower. By the way, I've seen people overcome these. Now, this GRE and this GMAT business, we do not know what is going to happen. My instincts are I see it fading away. One thing in humanities, in those areas that they're going to ask to see, is probably going to be a paper that you have written, a major paper, a thesis, and they're probably going to want it translated into English. Okay, the TOEFL will stay around, probably with Duolingo, but you also want to look at these. And the thing about these, and I will be sharing these with you as well, is that some of these are things, now we're starting to look at things you can, work with. For example, high-level relevant professional work experience. Okay, find your way into some kind of practice, even if it's a voluntary practicum. And for these kind of things, you look to the career center of your university, look to professors, grad students, see who's got projects going, and they're looking for someone to work on those projects, because that shows a real professional interest in what you're doing. Okay, and there's no role on a team that's too small. Okay, then you would talk about a compelling motive, which is basically what I've asked you to do on this form. Any significant personal details, you can see how this looks and why. Anything that you've done research or publication on. Okay, last year I had a high school student who had been published in peer-reviewed journals. Okay, and so this is, and also any licenses, memberships in groups that you can join, and you can often join international groups with a student membership that is not terribly expensive. Okay, any activity in your university, because they want to know what kind of college you're going to be. Okay. Also, this give yourself 1 point for each 5,000. Okay, if you're in budget as a bachelor's student, you need to talk about that because that means you made the grade. Okay, you're studying under a government stipend, and that's something that you want to note on your CV, and you want to note your GPA. Okay, you don't want it to look like you just chased Kafana life and made bad grades. Okay, but that they actually gave you an opportunity and you took it as far as you could. But this is one way to look at it. This is a way to research the university. As I said, these are older sheets. Everything has changed very fast. The minimum GPA is not going to change. TOEFL is probably not going to change because it shows that you can behave in the classroom and understand what's going on around you and answer questions. But you do need also to consider heavily about how you're going to fit in with GPA, with activities and things like this, because you're making up for the fact that GRE is probably not going to be part of this. GMAT, I don't know because they're fighting very hard. So MBAs would be taking GMAT for sure, okay? Then you begin to look at your skills and your experience, and this is just a way to look at yourself, okay? And to be very realistic. Okay, another item that you might want to look at that I will share with you is also an external assessment. And I'm going to show this to you in a Word document because I don't want to give it out to you in a PDF because I want you to be able to change it. Okay. And this is something that early on you want to be able to share with people. Okay, I always say don't get too involved with your friends toward the end or your family because you want to ask people early on. You can translate this into Serbian, parents, tetka, close friends. And the reason I ask you to do this early is that they're going to want to give you input. And if you give them a personal statement or an application when it's finished, they're going to naturally criticize this because you're asking them to look deeply at this. And because they really are your friends, they're going to give you something back and it may be negative, okay? But you can see that these are things that you would want to talk, that you would want people who know you to talk to you about. You also see that these have been taken out of graduate admissions essays, which is something that we talk about quite a bit in Slack if you wish to join there. Okay, can everybody see that now? Okay. Okay, so these are two items that will be quite helpful to you during this journey. Okay, and looking through this appears to look like probably the best materials that are most relevant for now. So let me see about moving them into our little file. Okay, into the chat area. And I will also see about sending them out along with the survey that I'm also sending out. This is so small on my screen that it's not always easy for me to find this little chat window. Here we go. Okay. Oh, let's go into article. It doesn't seem to want to send this. My technical support is like playing on the mobile phone, I swear. Okay, let's see if I'm getting this in. Okay. There are always technical issues. If I'm doing this, there's always technical issues. Okay, I think what it doesn't like is the Word document. Okay, so let's see. That's too long. I'm trying to see the everyone. See if I can do it. One more time. Okay, let's see if it likes this. Okay, I just sent that to you on PDF. Apparently, Zoom and Microsoft are not friends, so I will go ahead and send it out the other way, but also this how competitive are you, which is just like filling out numbers, and you can add that up. But I will get the other one out to you along with the worksheets. So this far along, since we're in our second evening, I would like to go ahead and take this time to ask you about other things that you would like to know about. It does not just have to be financial aid, but I want this to be an exchange and not so much of a lecture. Does anyone have anything they would like to add, or anything they're looking forward to or would like to know more about, or anything like that? Okay, and if you want to raise your hand, we'll turn your mic on and you can just flat out ask. Mics are only off because, not to silence you, not like Bobby Seale, but rather to keep us from having some kind of broad bandwidth problem. But anyone who would just prefer to ask something verbally, by all means, let me know. Raise your hand. I will turn on your mic. You can even ask in chat to have your mic turned on. Okay. Okay, that's a great question, Georgie. Okay, and it is very much, I think it's to Janice Jackson, what have you done for me lately? And so often students that have come to me with kind of icky bachelor's grades have even done a one-year master's. Okay, another thing that you should know, they're going to look much harder at your master's. Another thing is if you present yourself well and you do have 10s and 9s, but also you have some 7s and things, here's what I've found out. If you all looked at my transcript, and I pray that none of you ever do, you would look and say, gee, you like history a lot more than math, okay? And the same is said even students at ETF, when we look at their transcripts, you can pretty much see what area of this kind of work they're going to go in. And so it is very rare that somebody would just point at all the sevens and go, I want to spend the rest of my life in this area. Okay, how early should you start? Okay, they do recommend that you start 12 to 18 months. Okay, I recommend that the best way is to start the first year of faculty, to come in, do some advising, look at it, and then put it in the back of your mind to make the most of your whole graduate program. But the 12 to 18 months is mostly spent on research. And so a lot of people that do show up are told very quickly, it's time to put the pedal to the metal. Okay, but I would say that we are a region of late starters, okay, but not necessarily late bloomers, okay? So if you are starting late, Alexa, when you ask how early should we start, okay, those of you who are in your final year, you need to get going, and you need to get going right away. You may be taking a gap year, okay? Maybe if you can't live with a gap year, then you're going to have to figure out other combinations, okay, that will work, okay? However, many of the land-grant schools that would not give academic scholarships to undergraduates, but do give PhD scholarships, many of them have very late admission dates compared. So it's just depending. However many late starters, and I should add that to the questionnaire, is when you plan to start, unless it was on the previous questionnaire. I'll look and ask. I didn't want to ask you the same thing over and over. Just mainly email, last name, first name, so I can match you up. But if that's not on there, I'll go ahead and add it before we send it out, because it's important about who wants to start when. Okay, and it's not just a thing for STRBs. American students that are setting at one school and then planning to apply for masters and PhDs at that same school, it's going to work a lot like it works here in Belgrade. You talk to your professors, they're expecting you, here you go. But if they want to change to another school, they also, it's hustle time for them as well if they want to do their masters elsewhere. Okay. Okay, let's see. So that's projected. Okay, Nicola, a high GPA is always valued. If you've done other activities, those can make a difference, but it's going to depend on what those activities are. Okay, so, and that they're involved in your field, that you've shown a true commitment and dedication to the field. Okay, you do need to know where you want to apply before you begin, and what's ideal is if your first application is to a safety school, because the first application is the hardest. It's the most difficult to grab everything. In fact, maybe just apply somewhere you don't even intend to go to. Okay? But once you pull that first application together, the others become easier to send. The soul searching, the determination, where do you see yourself right after you graduate? Where do you see yourself 5 years later? What are your employment prospects? What do things look like to you? To go through all that and then give, you know, and you practice on not your favorite school, but you practice on maybe a safety. This is one of the pieces of advice within the profession, is that you don't start sending all those off to the hardest school in the country to get in and say, I'm going to start there. Because that's just starting at the top and working your way down, and you want to do it the other way. Okay, Petra, some will accept IELTS, some will accept TOEFL. They're much more flexible on that than the UK has been, which for many years now has only been accepting IELTS. Okay, but the Australians are accepting TOEFL, the Canadians. TOEFL remains the most accepted exam around the world, but you can ask them. You can, if you're really interested in a department, you can discuss that with them. Okay, and see what can happen. Okay, IELTS has not made the US inroads that they have hoped to, but testing is changing, and many schools are even accepting Duolingo, okay, which is easy. And TOEFL can be taken at home. And also, I'm going to ask Dragan to do something. Dragan, would you drop into the chat the free TOEFL placement that they can take? Oh, isn't it just a link? Okay, because we have a link to this free practice TOEFL. Basically, it's made up of old paper-based TOEFLs. It doesn't cost anything to take, and it gives you an idea of where you are. Okay, if I did well on IELTS, Petra, I would definitely write to them and talk to them about how well you've done. The graduates, okay, the one thing that they are kind of interested in for graduate students is about the speaking, because you will be teaching undergraduates. So that may be a deal breaker for some, or they may just call you up and talk to you. Okay, and okay, Dorothea, that is a very good question. It's going to be one by one. It's going to be one school by one school, okay, that you will need to look at and see if they have a waiver. Many schools in the U.S. give you an opportunity to fill out a form. It's nothing complicated, asking for a waiver. And they'll say, why do you think you should get the waiver? What you would say, Dorothea, is you would say, because I finished my Master's of Science in an English language program in Italy, and what that is, and different schools you're interested in. But one of the things is they have what they call unit contacts, or department head, or who you contact to ask these questions. It can be anything from the departmental secretary all the way up to the chair of the department. And the deal is, whoever you write to, respect. Kako se kaže postovanje. Postovanje. That departmental secretary often is the lifeblood of the whole shebang. Okay? This is the person that often will control your access and will often fight for you. Okay? That I have seen many different situations go down, including someone who thought they were getting in because they got a letter from the chair of the department, and the letter said, please quit treating my departmental secretary like this. Okay? Another where he wanted to write and ask for more money and felt he should write for the head of the department rather than the person who had been contacted by. And instead, I said, you stay with that person because she's your advocate. And she went in and came back and said, how about if we fully fund you? Okay? And these are the kind of things that we're here to try to answer, to try to guide you. We cannot create a person that does not exist, but we can try to help you find what is best in you and how to present yourself and answer just some of the head scratchers that you run across. Okay, is there anything else you all want to ask me before we close tonight? Okay, if you can find an interested company or organization and you can say, hey, I can do half, can you meet me halfway? Yes, there's a chance. It is better to show up up at the table with a little something than a little nothing. Okay, and if you have that kind of opportunity, this is something that you want to look at because often they will discount off of a tuition cost. Okay, I hope that helps, Vedrana. Okay, I'm going to send this form out for you to fill out, and part of the form has a place for your email that you would like to be invited to Slack, and we will just be sending out group invites as quickly as you fill out the form that we are preparing to send out to all of you. Okay, is that all right, Danilo? And there are several Danellos awaiting you that are already in the channel, and they've been very successful. Okay, so there you go. Okay, I want to thank everyone for doing this. I don't know what to think about everybody having to get on Slack. I do it a lot for meetings, not so much for conducting presentations, other than what we've done online before for people outside of the city. And so I feel kind of like I'm asking you all to endure something. And I really do appreciate it, but I do have to add, that's nothing compared to enduring getting into graduate school. But it's well worth it. It's the one time in your life where you can study and contemplate and live somewhere else in the world and not have to go to work every day. Okay, you'll work hard, but you'll play hard too. Thank you guys, and I'll say good night.